Hi everyone, my name is Eva Dumagit and I am with.
Angelo Alvarez.
In this presentation, we are going to give you guys information all about ethical principles of counseling. So let's start with autonomy. In this presentation, you can see that this principle addresses the concept of independence. The essence of this principle is also allowing an individual the freedom of choice and action. Autonomy is the basic moral principles in counseling. People are entitled to make their own decisions and act on them. And counselors shouldn't try to take that away. May mga ibang specific cases na ang mga counselor is kailangang i-balance ang respect sa isang individual choice sa mga iba pang factors. Kunwari, when a client is capable of when a client isn't capable of rational decisions, or her decisions could cause serious problems for herself or others. Kung mangyari ang dalawang yon, ang mga counselor is meron silang professional code na makaka-help sa kanila na mag-decide when to stand back, when to intervene, and when to explain the consequences sa client's action na yon. But they let him or her make the final decision. Um, Merong two important considerations ang autonomy. First, helping clients to understand how their decisions and values may be received within the context of the society in which they live and how they may impinge on the rights of others. The second consideration is related to the client's ability to make sound and rational decisions. Persons not capable of making competent choices, such as children and some individuals with mental disabilities, should not be allowed to act on decisions that could harm themselves or others. So, there are two examples of autonomy. One is counselors encourage client growth and development in ways that foster the client's interest and welfare. Counselors avoid also fostering dependent counseling relationships. Number two is a young adult from a strict household who is now living on her own for the first time is also part of autonomy. Next is Angelo.
Principle of non-maleficent. The principle of non-maleficent dictates that counselor avoid engaging in acts that could potentially cause harm both intentionally and intentionally. Intention what is which is all also known as do not harm or do good and weighing benefits versus risk or procedure such as efficient with medication or surgery. Next. And two example of principle of non-maleficent and principle of fidelity. Counselor avoid exploiting relationship with clients for personal advantage or shall avoid relationship or commitments that conflict with their interests. Two, school counselor obtain and have access to information that could cause harm to student with question of confidentiality arise.
So the next principle is principle of justice. In this slide, justice means to act in a fair or just manner. It is expected that counselors will act in a non-discriminatory manner to individuals or groups. Um, in addition to that explanation, according to Forrester, Miller, and Davis, suggests that although justice instructs counselors to act fairly, it does not mean treating all individuals the same. Rather, it relates to equity. It is the counselor's ability to acknowledge inequity and apply intervention to suit. Justice does not mean treating all individuals the same. Pag may isang individual na to be treated differently, ang kailangan gawin ng counselor is kailangan niyang magbigay ng katwiran. Na yung katwiran na yon kailangan it explains the necessity and appropriateness kung bakit niya tinitreat yung individual na yon differently. Justice in best practices must not take into account the client's current and past cultural and environment, um, and especially when it's different from the counselors. Fairness includes respecting clients' cultural values and refraining from the imposition of one's personal beliefs when those beliefs are inappropriate. For example, when counseling an individual whose beliefs are based on a collectivist culture, encouraging the client to take a prominent position or to create a distinct social persona would be an affront to his or her family and society. Such counsel would likely not to be in the client's best interest. We, as counselors, they have an obligation to provide others with whatever they are owed or deserve. In public life, counselors' obligation to treat all people equally, fairly, and impartially. Next, um, there are two examples of principle of justice. When counseling an individual whose beliefs are based on a collectivist encouraging the client, katulad ng sinabi ko na kaganina. And yung isa is, a counselor would give a person who is blind a form that is in braille or would go through the form with that individually orally. Instead of giving him or her a standard written form to fill it out, but a counselor would treat him or her the same as any other client in all other regards. Ang ibig sabihin nito is parang yung counselor, kahit tinitreat niya ng equally as katulad ng mga ibang client niya, yung person na who is blind. Parang ganun yung principle of justice. So lastly is
Principle of fidelity. Fidelity includes the principle of commitment, faithfulness in keeping promises. For example, if clients want to improve, they must be able to trust to psychologists and have confidence in the counseling partnership. As a result, the counselor must be careful not, not to jeopardize the counseling relationship or refuse to meet commitments. It, it is also the responsibility in keeping a commitment and also accountability. Example, members take all responsible and step to preserve the confidentiality and information acquired through their professional practice, and to protect the privacy and rights of individuals or organization about who information is collected or held.
so that concludes our presentation. Thank you guys for listening.